Okay, and welcome to the Poetry Box Live. I'm Shawn Aveningo-Sanders, and I'll be your host for tonight's show. For those of you who may be joining us for the very first time, my husband Robert and I run a small boutique press here in Portland, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box. And we publish about 25 to 30 poetry books per year, plus our annual anthology each fall called The Poeming Pigeon. And the Poetry Box Live is our way of supporting our talented authors to help them connect with a broader audience. And with that said, we are really excited today to present three wonderful poets for you. We have Kristin J. Leonard reading from Maine. We have LeHew from Eugene, Oregon. And we have the father-son duo of Christopher and Angelo Luna joining us from Vancouver, Washington. So let's get started with our first featured reader, Kristin J. Leonard, author of The 90th Day, Poems of Love, Loss, and Leftovers for Breakfast, which will be released in a few weeks on December 1st. Kristin J. Leonard is an adjunct college instructor living in Maine. She's a proud mother of both children and chihuahuas and loves gardening. She holds an MFA in creative writing, an MA in English literature, and a graduate certificate in rhetoric, writing, and digital media studies. Her critical and creative work have appeared in the Explicator, the Atlantic, and the Ekphrastic Review. She's the 2019 recipient of the Maine Literary Award for Drama and the Lit Festival's Dramatic Writing Festival for Emerging Writers. On most mornings, she could be found typing away at her kitchen table, still struggling to find the right word. Please welcome Kristin Leonard.
Okay. Hello and thank you. My first poem this evening will be Welcome to the Catskills. Welcome to the Catskills. They smile at me at JFK on a glossy brochure on display at the information counter at Terminal C. Welcome to the Catskills. One boy, one girl on one inner tube. Their arms and legs slick with sunscreen, pressed against each other, close enough to share one summertime breath. An inhale from some long, almost forgotten breeze. The upper edge of the brochure is curled. No doubt, hands have hovered, considering, but pass the lovers by, selecting a glossier travel destination. Not I. I want to sing the words aloud. Welcome to the Catskills. I think of taking a picture with my cell phone to always remember, but the straps on my backpack are heavy, the scarf on my neck wrapped tight, to protect me from winter on the other side of the glass. I stand behind strangers, alone in a line that snakes across commercial grade carpet, zigzagging till it stops at the TSA checkpoint. A man speaks. It's 4 degrees today. His companion drags her suitcase, smiles. Still, it's almost spring. I think of melting snow, of shining puddles, dandelions, dewdrop petals layered in wrap-tight blossoms, preparing to bloom without me. I step out of line. I need to capture the lovers in a cell phone memory, to set them free into cyberspace, to defy space and time and find their way back to you. Whispering, welcome to the Catskills. Surely you will recognize them, the boy, the girl, the inner tube. I think of this. I push my hand, I reach into my pocket and touch the American Airlines ticket wedged against the brand new pack of big red gum. Welcome to the Catskills. I glance at the brochure one last time, and I remember We already said goodbye to the Catskills. So, in a little change of pace, my second poem this evening is called The Precipice. I am standing at the edge, waiting for the elevator to carry me up to the second floor, away from the gift shop, away from St. Joseph's emergency room, where they carried you away on a stretcher on the Thursday I forgot my phone. Looking down, the door to the elevator is 1 inch from my toes. One step, one nudge, one glide, one exhale, till I will be carried up to the other side, to the second floor, to the precipice of life or death, to the ICU where I will know whether you, wrapped in white, have been sentenced, not too suddenly, to life on the other side. Down brightens, but I still need to go up to where you are, to life or death or the in-between that lies at the ICU, down the hall from the elevator, where entry is gained by announcing my presence, my importance, and proving I am needed in the private room to the right, where the smell of disinfectant tingles my nose. Patient's name, I will waver when they ask, teetering too close to the edge of knowing, of tasting the future that might come too soon. If it comes, when it comes, underneath the overhead light of the ICU. Up glows, the doors pull open. I step inside. 1 minute and 25 seconds later, I step out onto the second floor, where the air is thin. I know I am standing on the edge of the precipice, which is covered in yellow, speckled linoleum. Okay, so for a third change of pace in my final poem, I first want to give credit where credit's due, even where it's kind of not clear where it's due. I was inspired by this poem by a saying I flipped across, maybe on my window, my computer window, that is often credited to Winston Churchill, who was supposedly had said, if you're going through hell, keep going. There's a big long history and you could spend an hour researching this quote. He did not say it, but I was very much inspired by this quote that I came across in April of 2020. And I will say no more than that. You can fill in the rest of your, put their pictures there. Okay, so the name of my final poem is When You're Going Through Hell. When you're going through hell, drive fast. Faster than you think is possible in your dented Kia Rio. And don't be surprised when the engine pushes on without exploding. 85, 90, 95, 100. Have you forgotten? You're in hell. After all, nothing explodes. Nothing changes. The only way to get through is focus on the road. Watch for the exit that might exist. If it exists, at least you hope it exists. under the cloak of midnight. Focus on your fingers, grip tight to the steering wheel. Focus on your destination, your direction. Maintain speed, purpose, patience, and fight the urge to stop, to look back. For there's nothing there, only abyss, thick and dark and deep, swollen with shadowed memories of brighter days. Because you're in hell. But hold tight, for in time, you'll open your eyes to sunshine, stretching through your bedroom window, and you'll realize the impossible wasn't. And you can make it through hell. And thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristin. I have to say, this is a really eclectic collection, and it's a really fun mix. And I really love how inventive you get with your language, and the way you have this way of turning really mundane things into like little moments to savor. I mean, the one about your, I know you didn't read it today, but the one about your cat, that's really fun.
I almost did that one instead.
So you guys don't have to buy the book so you can read that poem, because it's really good. And anyway, so I just love it. It's delicious. And so thank you for sharing your poetry with us today, Kristin. It was a real treat.
You're welcome.
Our next featured poet is LeHew, author of Dear John, which is due for release next week. Former Girl Scout LeHew is enthralled by negative spaces and writes from the hills of Eugene, Oregon. She is widely published with several previous collections, including Buyer's Remorse, Let Widows Be Widows, Willingly Would I Burn, It's Always Night, It Always Rains, and Becoming. In her alternate life, Laura has been active in the high-tech industry for over 35 years, working on some of the largest and most high-profile cybercrime cases in recent years. Now, there would be a fun book to read. Laura received her MFA from the California College of the Arts. She's on the steering committee for the Lane Literary Guild and facilitates the first and third critique group. Laura co-hosted a reading series, Poetry for the People, and has held various positions for the Oregon Poetry Association, who recently awarded her the very prestigious Ruth Banta Award for her dedication to poetry. Laura runs Uttered Chaos, a small press, which also publishes books of poetry. Please welcome Laura LeHew.
Great. Sorry about that. November for me has been full of departures. Thursday to Thursday, Coral walking hand in hand with her husband, Alan Paller, scholar, engineer, friend, and Charles Thielman, artist, poet, and also friend. So I wanted to thank everyone for arriving today, and I wanted to thank Shawn and Robert for Dear John. I'm going to begin with a poem by Eric Muller gave to me this summer that his Aunt Virginia wrote, Virginia R. Terrace. For the first time, Father asking me to business beyond the green hill, backing down the drive to the hazel-lined road. What were we talking about? What great subject was hanging between us? Father long dead, many sunsets and mornings between. I, aging, forgetful, remember only as I shifted my colt legs. For the time inside myself, I cried. He does not know. I know. You did not hear me say it. For years after I left that road, you called me your rabbit, was it? Your monkey face? These two are from Let Widows Be Widows, which is releasing March. Catching Up. FaceTiming with my sister, day 120. She asks, how's Leon? Dead. How's your sick friend Marie? Dead. Baby, her cat? Dead. And Socks? Dead. Dorian, my cat? Dead. Well then, what about Mike? He's fine. Double bypass and stents, but he'll live. Cat? Grandpa Bill? Dead. Belvedere, wait, he's from a long time ago, so he's dead, right? Yes, and mom and dad. And now she's about to cry. And I laugh and say, sister, it's great you are remembering the dead. Someday someone will remember us. And she laughs out loud. Sister, then will you buy me a new bra? November. The rain settles in, a constant giving way to bluster, downpour, stop and go thunder, not quite an onslaught. I drive up the 5 in the company of ghosts. Over wintering fields amber, copper vermilion swirls, bittersweet halos, massing bleak clouds, ghosts, rusted hawks atop fence posts, a lone blue heron pirouettes in peridot sedge. The radio, NPR, drones on and on, ghosts, recalibrating GPS, ghosts. I deliver books, meet my friend's mom, ghosts. I'm mauled by a border collie kisses, ghosts. Ghosts are following me, the chronic embrace, a collective. Ghosts brimmed stories unfold in slow time. A nod to my mother, a recalling, recanting, recollection. Yesterday was her birthday. My hoop of ghosts multiplies and splits, an earnest cancer. This day I have no need, no want for more company. This next poem is going to be in the Syracuse Cultural Workers Women's Artists 2022 date book. So please say that 5 times fast. Why she ran away from home. Ended up handcuffed to a wooden straight back chair in another state, waiting for her parents to pick her up. Why she sat there staring blankly, unbroken, defiant, tears choked into her green eyes, the color of harmony, money, fertility. Why she refused to say a word, not even to ask to pee. Her throat brimming with pebbles, the river of words dammed. She could not swallow or sing, and she had not yet learned to journal. She had not yet gifted herself some turquoise, thick and veined, turned it into a necklace. Her birthstone had not yet arrived. She could not give voice, not to herself, not to the police. She ran away because who would believe her? She ran away not for love, though she did love him. He was not the reason she opened the window, hopped a Greyhound bus with $225 in small bills, coins. Her mother strikes a match, embers of Parliament 100, while her father's hands turn red, then white, crush the steering wheel on the trip home. And they all know what is coming. The recoil of silences, lifting the painted over window lock, listening for the stir of parents, slowly cranking open the hinged window, nudging the glass, listening, escaping into the star-filled night. She would never be contained again. And this is a poem that Charles Thielman wrote in his book, Into the Owl Dream Night. So much to say. Gust-blown embers, sequin beach sunset. We sit on driftwood, awaiting twilight. Eastern horizon jackbooted into a waltz of hungers. Crusade, jihad. A sidewinder shrugs history up a dune. as we consider beliefs snapped short of dream, reviving memories as dusk comes on, talking about faith, loss of faith, blending insights and desires into a fibrous current of giving, receiving. Awaiting twilight, we sit, arranging the pieces of our mirage just so. Talons of regret peeled from pulse, dusk silhouetted memories, deepening crow's feet, smile lines. So much to say before we walk out into the salted dark, broke, trusting the sand, barefoot, facing the undertow. And I'm going to finish up with a set from Dear John. Thermals. I was going to tell you the green herons have come back, 3 of them camouflaged by sedges, shrubs, and rushes. I was going to tell you a blue heron loped across the delta, how I slowed to the long, deep strokes, wings nearly dipping, nearly, how it gracefully landed alongside a great white egret, how the egret was poised, attentive to the fish barely breaking the surface. I was going to tell you the ducklings had survived, that an American copper butterfly buzzed me, that a grebe bowed its tufted head, preening in the July sun. Western pond turtles napped on the logs or stretched their necks skyward, but you were still so angry. I wrapped myself in a frost, told you all was well. Contact. I wrote this for Ricky Dopkins. With a group of friends all coupling up 2 by 2, he and I, go snipe hunting in the woods, a sliver of trees separating houses, street. Our fingers caress, collide. Through clusters of lilacs, cicadas drone, June bugs stumbling in flight. I lodge white in the heat of his shirt, all lips, tongues, hands, teeth. First kiss as improbable as the steps on the moon. Dusk becomes us. Never read this one before. Rodney at 46. Rodney at 46. She sees him every year. Can't recall his name. Straw hat, silver and turquoise Thunderbird, feather on the band, 50-50 poly cotton plaid shirt. Her own personal convention stalker. He tells her he remembers her hair as purplish. She thinks it was probably plum. He lived all his life in Omaha at home, lost his father to lung cancer, and recently came and sold it, inherited approximately $225,000 and a house with land. He'd never used an ATM, never lived on a farm, but his aunt had, never been on a plane, never seen the ocean, never had internet access except at work, never kissed a girl. He seizes her hand and shouts, "Darling, I am looking for a wife." To solve the problem of rain, it's not that she didn't love him. Could she love 2 men at the same time? There's no measure for love, all or nothing, that green quiet, the eye, the center of the tornado. Love comes sometimes unannounced, without rings, without ceremonies. It's not that she didn't limits she could never be certain of. Again, already gone, he yanks his hand free, confesses the spark of a mistress. And I'm going to end with Dear John. Dear John, my body freezing in little gasps in sync with maple, oak, and fir, storm trees reliving the fire, the crack and shatter, a sort of PTSD, flames engulfing Oakland, eucalyptus drowning out the air. Dear John, amid the musky cloy of candle wax, I trust you not to start a fire, not to set the building ablaze, or me. Dear John, in my dream, you are a ghost in the graveyard, a pale bloom on a thin spine, a rare red variant opening along a volcanic basalt escarpment. Dearest, truth more complex than thought. It's been 20 years and hey, look, I'm sorry. I fell into flame. I fell into sun. I became a winter storm, a swath of snow and ice. John, ask me how to survive asking you a lightning storm. You took my flame, the uninvited storm, out into the ocean, sea after sea, preparing for scorched weather. Dear one, in a barrage of downed branches, downy magnolia buds dipped in ice, a fire in the stove belly, you tell me, to summon breath, you tell me what happens between the notes is the living. And that was for John E. Clark III. Thank you, everyone.
That was wonderful, Laura. I have to say, this is such a remarkable book to read. I mean, it's full of so many surprises with each turn of the page, and I have never in my life seen anyone be so inventive with personifying the punctuation as you have throughout this book. I mean, it just adds a whole nother level of meaning the way you've done that. So you have, who haven't seen the book yet, you guys are in for a real treat. I think Chris Jarmick summed it up really well when he blurbed your book, and he said, keep this one close by because it's worth reading several times. And I have to agree. So thank you so much for sharing these poems with us today, Laura. Okay, our final feature tonight is the dynamic father-son duo of Christopher and Angelo Luna, authors of Exchanging Wisdom, a guide for parents of the autonomous. Christopher Luna is a poet, editor, teacher, writing coach, and collage artist. He served as the inaugural Poet Laureate of Clark County from 2013 through 17. He has an MFA from the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics and is the co-founder of Printed Matter Vancouver, an editing service and small press for Northwest writers. He also founded the Ghost Town Poetry Open Mic in Vancouver, Washington in 2004. Christopher believes that the parent-child power dynamic is inherently fascist. So he endeavored to raise his son to think for himself, question authority, and make his own decisions. Despite what some saw as tragic indulgence, Angelo grew up to be a sweet, kind, polite, philosophical, compassionate young man, and Christopher could not imagine being more proud of the person Angelo has become. Angelo Luna is a poet, son, and Lego connoisseur. Originally from New York with a migration to Washington as a young child, he grew up with a fiery bloodline and cold weather. He loves writing, working, and finance, and is interested in what every human has to offer. It is my pleasure to welcome Christopher and Angelo Luna.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here. I want to say thank you to Shawn and Robert for publishing this book. I wasn't sure if I was going to find a publisher for such a personal book, but I think the other poets here also know that, we're not the best judge of whether our work is for public consumption or not. So anyway, I'm just glad that you believed in it. And I really enjoyed Kristin's set, and I really admire and respect Laura and just love her work. So I'm really happy to be a part of this reading today. Thanks for having us. And I couldn't be prouder than to be able to do the reading with my son. And this is our first book that we've done together. So it's a big deal for the two of us.
Yeah. Yeah, we're both very grateful for the opportunity and also the publishing of the book. We've been very excited about it ever since it was announced and everything. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, and we're going to mostly be alternating with each other here. And the first poem that I'm going to read is called, the poems in the book range from the time when he was about 3 years old until this past year, time he spent living with us during the pandemic, and when he left the house to go out on his own and begin his own independent life in May of this year. So that's a long span of time. The poems that I'll share will go pretty much chronologically, so he'll get older as we go. So this one is called Angelo Picks Flowers for Dad and Ganesh. The power of the book only lasts for a little time. This is one of my gifts for you. Soon this will end. It is only temporary. Look, you found it, the Rock of Liberty. I'm helping you get as much of that stuff as I can, because it's one of my gifts. Remember to tell me if you see any more of those dandelions, Dad. I'll blow them. In my world, everything is perfect. You can't be in it. Everyone has their own world. No grown-ups at my ceremony. They don't allow grown-ups at my church. I can bring you back a piece of cake from my ceremony. Want to do some research? I want you to go on my world if you're doing research right now. That's another one of the gifts I give to you. I try to give you all the leaves that I can. Did you know that Ganesh's gifts are your gifts that I'm trying to give you? I want you to play gambling so you can win money. You have to find your real bride. Your real bride is a rock star with a blue guitar. I like giving you gifts. These are the source of the power good. Give my word deep and rise. This shall tell us the way back home. And every word in that poem was uttered by Angelo in April or July of 2006. Here's a poem about raising him in Vancouver, Washington. Things get serious in Ghost Town. Walking home from Clark College, Dick Cheney passed me driving a blood red pickup. Don't have to remind you about the gas mileage on a vehicle like that. The deep-seated belief that the suburbs are somehow insulated from the violence and insanity of the city is a myth created by frightened white folks who whisper to one another like children playing beneath forts made of bed sheets, casting spells to ward off evil. For even here in Vancouver, USA, things have been getting serious. Kidnapping, murder, shooting, stabbing, much of it, if you believe the papers, committed by skeletal raccoons tweaked out on methamphetamine. Last night while I was in bed, the boy's arms wrapped tightly around my neck, a woman ran through my neighborhood screaming, and it was for his sake I told myself that I did not run outside to aid her, but instead lay there, frozen, and listened. And now we're going to turn things over to Angelo.
Hello, everyone. So this one is the first poem that I wrote directly for my dad, and it was shortly after I got hired at my very first long-term job, and it was for his birthday back in 2018, and it's called Hearth and Home. How does it feel to be a father? The same, I imagine, as it does to be a son, but in a different way. The pride of watching another being grow and change throughout the rest of our lives. It seems as if the paradoxical mindfuck of whether or not to have a child solves itself as soon as the child is born, intentional or not. Nobody knows who the best fathers in history were, but it's not a question for the ages or even one worth asking. Just look at the initials CL and choose the best course of action to take as you move towards being more like that. The sad truth of the matter is that one will die first, but it is impossible to tell which. The happy truth is that both are connected in full, heart and soul, until whatever ends they meet. Knowledge is a living fan base of all the bullshit this world produces, so get rid of all the knowledge and focus on the love. That's the real stuff. The pure stuff. Being this close and similar states of being with infinitely different lives is comparable to piloting a ship that isn't your own. You gain your footing after learning from the best before you, and then chart a new, unique course that someone has taken before, but nobody has seen. Behind the books and the beard stands a mountain of movie trivia and glorious emotion. Not to be trifled with, because there is no fighting in that beautiful landscape. Only the hum of the birds, the scratch of a pen on paper, and markings of a life well lived that is not close to over. The world needs more of this, they both say, standing in the grass, pointing out to a majestic sunset.
So the next poem is another one of those where I was writing down the things that Angelo says, so he's going to help me read this one. The Buddha of Independence Day. Angelo leads me through the desert. I follow behind him, reading from a hardcover book full of his future poems. As we explore the wasteland, he informs me about the gods, their powers, and their stations.
You know the Buddha, right? The one who comes on the 4th of July? I know a lot about the gods. Ganesh is the 5th god. The first one is the Emperor of Heaven, the one we don't believe in. It's true. If you don't believe it's true, it means you don't believe in Ganesh's powers. Sin is one of the 15 devils. He's enemies with Ganesh, but of course Ganesh always wins. Did you know that Cat is the god of China? Remember that trick I invented? I named it the Flying Knee. I'm the great corrector. I am your alternative, Jedi Raccoon. I paused the 7 trials. I think this year the Chaos Orbs are aligning. And then this is another one I also wrote for, it was either his birthday or Father's Day. I believe this one was for Father's Day. It's kind of a tradition at this point that I write one for all of those major occasions. So this one's called Ata, which is father in Latin. Not a beat poet, but loves the beat, certainly. Smooth jazz, rapid rhythms, the claws that sink in when an invader grabs you by the short and curlies and tells you to fucking dance. Not a beat poet, no, but described by Ginsberg decades before his existence nonetheless. First thought, best thought. Uninhibited, uncontrolled, a radioactive substance in writing. Internal radiation therapy, words healing the country from the inside out. While the world burns in Trump's America, Bolsonaro's Brazil, God's earth, he writes his truth and fights fire by sucking the oxygen out of the room. A man whose quantifiable praise for his ancestors quiets crowds when it's spoken out loud. No more fire. There aren't enough of him. Not quite Zen, but Buddhist in soul and practice. Does what being said need to be said? Why are you saying it? Does it help anyone? They may be mantras to some, but it's better thought of as a scientific method. Dissect every interaction, future and past, and see which parts were necessary. Make yourself the best you can be. I write inhibited, clinical, still coming into my own and learning from my betters. He teaches as a delimiter, not a time bomb. Not a beat poet definitively, but heavily influenced and proud of it. Surrealist, grounded, visionary works, clutter file cabinets, real and digital. Ginsberg watches him from another life, passing by on the street every chance he gets without knowing it. I like to think that if reincarnation is the way things go, that good old Alan is younger than my father. Maybe he's a student, a fellow teacher, a preteen he makes a collage for. Maybe he's me, though I doubt it. I have other elders to follow. Stoic principles prepare us for loss, and I'll spend my time and study preparing for his most. Regardless of the sum of my works or the product of his, I don't know what real life will do when he's gone. A crack in an invisible wall that only suffers when a truly great person leaves. There's only so many it can take. I wonder if his will be the last. He betters himself, works with his son to live longer, even though it hurts, and sometimes isn't as entertaining as others. He doesn't want to see that wall crack either. He wants to surpass legacies, become one of the elders. No, that's incorrect. Forgive my candidness, but that's what I want. He would be happy leaving a mark on a closed, small circle. I want to see his name in essays 50 years from now. Either way, I'll be proud. He deserves it.
I'm very lucky. I have to hold back from giving him a hug right at this moment. This is a very short excerpt from a longer poem, Ode to Kathleen Luna, the OG, Original Goddess. When I was a teen, if you saw me scribbling in one of my notebooks, you'd jokingly ask if I was writing about how wonderful my mother is. I confess that this was not always the case. However, I wrote with the awareness that none of the adventures I was having would have been possible without you. I occasionally ask Angelo to promise me that he will remain sweet forever. There isn't enough sweetness in the world, I tell him. So you'll be doing a good thing if you hold on to that. When he throws his arms around me, tells me, I love you, you're the best dad in the world, or brings me flowers, I am filled with an indescribable joy and the knowledge that he is a living embodiment of the love you created, a love which will outlive us all. And now we're going to hear another poem from Angelo.
And this is the final poem that I wrote specifically for this book that I have in it, called School Zone. A long time ago, in a country not so far away, a few empirical hypocrites declared that children were property of the parents, blacks were property of the whites, and women were property of their husbands. A not so long time ago, in a country much closer, an enlightened being was born with the knowledge that this was shite and people deserved better. He taught his son this, along with knowledge of the human body, a love of obscene horror, and an open mindset. The modern day hypocrites call it dereliction of duty. He called it freedom, and still does. The son grew older, recognizing how hurtful the world can be, experiencing it ever so often and questioning his father about the experience. His father responded with, people who are mean to others probably don't have a good home life and have been bullied themselves. This is why it's even more important to be nice to them. So he did. More years passed and he found friendship everywhere, love multiple times, and knowledge of how to be better everywhere he looked. Encouragement came from the patriarch at every book read, journey experienced, and thin-lined walked. At age 16, he received a driver's license and set out on his own for the first time. Something stuck out to him, school zones. People speeding past or abiding by the restrictions both surfaced as the same thought in his mind. They say they slow down because they care about the children, but if that was true, why would we need the fines? Another thought came. His father cares about the children. Compassion is a crime when you live in a world where all you have been taught is how to suffer at the hands of others. This boy's father taught him how to suffer and be kind despite it, doing something many others didn't, being selfless. He would make mistakes, so would the father, but actualization doesn't come from taking easy paths. 18 went by, then 19 and 20. Finally, he sat at the cusp of a new life, one without restrictions or childhood surroundings, and found a peaceful kind of gratitude, that he was raised to appreciate the life he was given and will do the same for his children one day. The father will cry when he leaves, and no one but his wife will hear it. However, he'll be in good hands. She follows the same code. And still, despite the shifting tides of years to come, the sun will never be too far away.
Father and son facing the same way. Thought rushes through synapse vessel like hypertensive blood, branching off in 60 directions at once. No way to stop the frenzy of the explosion. No way to escape the pileup at the end of thought's path. Still, it might be possible to slow down enough to see each, to experience each, one at a time. Valerie's family photo totally destroys me. And this poem may destroy me, but I'm going to try it. Somewhere in the recesses of my memory resides the perpetual joy of watching your hair bounce as you ran from me, your little legs infused with boundless energy, your little head barely containing a consciousness bursting with limitless possibility. Like lone wolf and cub, we traversed the strange and passive-aggressive streets of Ghost Town, and I wrote down every word you said because they were brilliant. You reminded me that magic is real, that life is good, that despite your mother's concerted effort to destroy me, everything would eventually be okay. You saved my ass. You did not even realize that our adventures could have ended with the shadow of a horrible memory, a newspaper clipping reporting the violent end of a father who simply gave up. Thank you for every smile, every kiss, every time you challenged me or made me laugh. Your love makes every sacrifice worthwhile. You're not a little boy anymore, except in my heart's memory, and I can never thank you properly for bringing me back to life. So people that know my story of how I ended up out here, etc., know that I was saved twice. So I was saved by Angelo and then by Tony. Sigil to prevent the spirit death of the psychonaut. Catholic school sense memory, the constant purgatory of fear. Below and beyond the honeycomb tile, the solidity of the world recedes. I am safe for as long as this strange vision holds. Later, ego death, the twirling of the leaf, and the sudden separation of the greens. Doors of perception remain open for the duration. I cannot prove that either of us is here or that any of this is real, certain that I can't tell you what any of it means. But I know that my love created you because I was there at the moment that you slipped screaming into this world. So I'm going to share one more poem from the book with you. And this one is really special for me because, during the stay-at-home order during the pandemic, it was really the first time since Angelo was 4 that I got to have him live with me 24 hours a day. And so it was like a lot of things having to do with the pandemic. It was kind of the mind fuck of, beautiful and terrible things happening simultaneously. So I wrote this poem one day that we were watching Hamilton together and something incredible happened. So this is dedicated to Angelo, but also to Greg, Tony, my wife, and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Celebrate like you're running out of time. And thank you for your attention and your good energy. Separated from his love, Angelo studies stoicism, obsesses over stats, keeping an eye on the latest from the WHO and the CDC to tell him where his head is at. Perhaps his studies will lead him to develop the New York City grit his mother denied him when she tore us from our home state so that she could spend her days hiding. All I know is I admire him. I must respect his wishes regarding our time outside the house. He's keeping us all safe, and in return, I enjoy the gift of time with him. It's all we have in the end. Lockdown inevitably changes one's perspective. I now realize that I suffer from self-created, ego-driven paranoia, all of which are illusion and a colossal waste of my limited time on this earth. Or that I spend too many moments worrying about bullshit. Being isolated from family and friends since late 2001 has forced me to reconsider my concept of both freedom and independence. Meanwhile, the world burns, and an evil thug has his rich knee on the neck of our democracy. On this day when independence from monarchy is reduced to a mindless, heartless, nutrition-free cartoon of patriotism, I marvel at you, my brother, an anomaly in our contentious family. Greg, you are a truly peaceful person and the only one able to broker peace when shit goes down. Wish I had an ounce of your ease to soothe my troubled mind. It is as if the spirit of our grandfather, his tranquility, the quiet power of his equanimity has leapt into you so that you might embody the harmony this energy affords. I love you for it. Yesterday, as we watched Hamilton, crying and laughing and experiencing a resurgence in our love for the Republic, a hawk appeared suddenly on our back fence and everything froze. You should have seen it. Yellow and red and ferocious, majestic, and completely indifferent to our petty worries. We caught a brief glimpse of true freedom and realized how lucky we are to be alive right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
And we can't hear your applause, but it's the thought that counts.
Yeah, we appreciate it nonetheless.
Well, everybody was applauding, hearting, and probably crying. I know I was. I miss my kids so much right now. And listening to Angelo read these poems, these tributes to you, Christopher, my goodness, you are very, very lucky. And I envy the relationship that the two of you have built. This book, I'm a mother of 3 adult children, and they're all on their own now, scattered across the country. And I fell in love with these poems the instant I read them. And I just love how they show this it's relationship that you've built between the two of you. I love how it shows how you fought to be with him, and how it's charted a map, and not for the child, but for the parent to learn how to let the child be who he's destined to be. And I think that's truly just a beautiful thing. And I can't thank you enough for both sharing these poems with us today. It was really quite a special treat.
Thank you. Thanks for putting this out into the world. And of course, we want to know what people think once you get to actually read it. I'd love to hear your opinions and your feedback on the book.
I want to thank you, our audience, for joining us for another edition of the Poetry Box Live. You know, as poets and authors have been impacted greatly by the closure of bookstores and limited reading venues across the country, it really means the world to us that you've joined us on Zoom here to celebrate their poetry. Next month, our show will be Saturday, December 11th at 4 p.m. Pacific, and we'll have 3 poets featuring. We have Rihanna Holland. She's a spoken word artist and poet from Minneapolis and author of Catching Narcissists. We have Maddie Mitchell, a young poet from Kentucky and author of We're Not Real Anyways, and Lancer Howard, a California poet and author of The Screaming Silence. So to keep up to date on upcoming shows, new releases, and submission opportunities, please subscribe to our newsletter by going to thepoetrybox.com, where you'll find a sign-up form at the bottom of each webpage. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next month. Feel free to unmute yourself and chat with the poets and ask any questions.
That was wonderful, y'all. Thank you. What a great show.
I just want to say it's great to hear everyone read today. It's my first time attending one of these, and I see some people I know. Laura, it's great to hear you. And Kelly, hi. And it's really great to hear you all read. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
James. It's great to
Thank
meet you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank
And
you.
Robert.
Sean and Robert.
Thank you.
Wonderful afternoon.
Good to see
Thanks,
everyone.
Robert.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Laura.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
That was really fun.
Yeah.